Couple of sessions behind us then on day 2 of this Oval Test. India 53 for 1. This is ESPN Cricket for Matchday. I'm Rana Kapoor, still with Ajit Agarkar and Monty Panesar. We'll also get views from George Dobell from outside the Oval in just a bit. Honours even in that session, just about.
Yeah, I think good little session for India. I think you can see how easy pace the pitch is now every time, especially if the ball's pitched a bit short. So much easier going on the back foot. Length's obviously critical on how you go on this pitch. And Moeen Ali looks like the biggest danger for India again. There seems to be a little bit of spin. But good little sessions, especially for Rahul. Bit streaky at times.
Yes.
But he's decided to be positive, which is not such a bad thing. And I think the pitch can afford that sort of batting if you can pick the right balls.
Monty, we spoke of Moeen Ali even earlier and how he would be a threat, giving India batting second and fourth. But in just those 2 overs, we almost seem to have got a bit of a feeler as to how this could be a challenge. We might see a lot more of Moeen.
Yeah, I think we will. Moeen is going to probably pose, quite a lot of danger. I think there is, the wicket is quite dry, and he seems to get, that nice loop, nice dip on the ball. It'll be interesting to see how the Indian batsmen in the next session look to play Moeen Ali. Will they look to attack him, use their feet? Because, in the previous Test match, they really, just sat in tight. They didn't really look to come down the wicket, put pressure on Moeen Ali. That's what they need to do. They really need to, look to hit him over the top, push fielders back, have an in and out field setting, and then I think, the Indian batsman can rotate the strike and put a bit more pressure on Moeen Ali. If they look to just sit in there trying to get singles, I think Moeen Ali's, going to eventually, bowl really well in this session, and 3 or 4 wickets could be, for him. So I would like to see the Indian batsman sort of apply a bit more pressure to Moeen Ali, and then let's see how he reacts to that.
Yeah, easier said than done. India have struggled to either find the right balance on how to attack Moeen, or even before they've tried to attack him, they've been dismissed. Even in these 2 overs, that little effort from KL Rahul, the right-handers trying to come outside his off-stump, as a few guys did. But barring Rahane, I don't think anyone was really in control against Moeen.
Yeah, hopefully it's not as bad as it was in Southampton. It was quite scuffed up by the time Moeen Ali bowled. But you can see Pujara uses his feet a lot, generally to spinners. Was a bit lucky with that catch, but I think these 2 will score against the spin. Monty's right. I mean, once they put a bit of pressure on him, it is also quite a fast-scoring ground at times, this Oval. It will invariably, doesn't matter who the bowler is, if you're getting scored off, puts a bit more pressure on him. And there are less catches around the bat at that point. So, yeah, they've both looked positive. I think there are enough run-scoring opportunities on that pitch, and India will have to take them because that's a fair score that England have put up.
One thing that Moeen Ali has is the luxury of a score, like Ajit points out. Let's go to George Dobell, senior correspondent in the UK. George, a bizarre or again strange sort of morning session. We thought we'd be looking at England all out 220 or somewhere there, and then typical of this series, when you think one team's on top, something else happens. We were having this conversation in the studio that Virat Kohli and maybe India were just switched off. Strange field settings, expecting the 2 wickets to fall, and they didn't happen. I wonder what you made of it.
I thought maybe the Indian seamers have finally started to run out of a bit of steam. I mean, they've given a lot this series. They've kept going. They've been terrific. And actually, they were still quite unlucky. And give a bit of credit, we expect Jos Buttler at this stage to bat pretty well. But I thought Stuart Broad batted with a lot of maturity and experience and common sense. And I've seen him score more runs, playing some big shots, heaving around. But I thought he played like a proper batsman, the batsman he used to be. So I thought England played it pretty smart, and I thought India just looked a wee bit tired. But again, I don't think their bowlers had a lot of luck throughout that whole innings. I don't know how many times they beat the bat, but it happened really quite often. But in the end, yeah, you're right, England's lower middle order has bailed them out of trouble again, and that's really been the story of the series, I think.
One thing I'd like to get your thoughts on a little more. We were quite critical of Virat Kohli's field settings at the time. Deep point to Stuart Broad as soon as he comes in, allowing the easy single even when Jos Buttler's not necessarily trying to protect the tail. But do you see a lot of chat going on with Virat Kohli? Is he talking a lot to the bowlers? Are bowlers asking him for the kind of fields that they want? Is there any sort of that, or is it just going on as per the set menu, the set plan that he might have come with?
Well, that's a really interesting point, because I think Stuart Broad is the sort of batsman who can make captains look a bit silly. But the thing is, he did get him caught sort of deep mid-wicket, deep mid-on, somewhere like that, which you could
just get that line sorted with George Dobell. Tends to happen when we question Virat Kohli. Our line gets a little up and down. But no, that's just good fun.
That was early on in the innings.
Yes.
Not when the batsman was set. That was early on in the innings.
Okay, let's keep the chat going forward though. 3:30. If we are to forget the fact that England lost, what, 6-0 yesterday evening, if we just look at the evidence of how this pitch is played in 5 sessions, how is 3:30 as a score?
It's a good score, particularly how India's batted through this series. I mean, even in conditions, okay, the ball swung around, but even when the conditions at times in this series were on the flatter side, Indian batting struggled. Fortunately, they've lost only 1 wicket. Usually, as has been the case, both openers have struggled to give them a bit of a start. At least one of them is out there with a start. Would have hated that break at the moment, Rahul. He's got to come out and start again fresh. So hopefully he remembers that he's got to come out and start afresh. So yeah, it's probably the best conditions that there have been in this Test series to bat against the new ball, and pretty slow pitch at the moment. I think George is right. Indian bowlers bowled exceptionally well. I think it's the length. The more you watch it, every time the English bowlers have got it a bit fuller, they've gone past the bat, or they've looked a lot more threatening than when the ball is now pitched short. It's standing up nicely. So the length is going to be critical for the seamers, because there is still a little bit of movement. Not what we've seen in the series, but there is a bit of swing.
Towards the end of yesterday, Monty, in the final session, we thought the ball got a bit of zip, or the wicket had a bit of zip in it, and the ball was carrying through quite nicely. Will things change now that we've had 5 sessions of play? You go with Ajit?
Yeah, I agree with Ajit. I think the wicket has slowed down a little bit, and the ball isn't zipping through as it should, and the wicket has kind of flattened out a bit as well. So I think the Indian batsmen been brought up on spin, and they're playing the Ranji Trophy, Dilip Trophy all the time against the turning ball. So I find it really interesting that how comes the Indian batsmen are struggling against Moeen Ali? They've been brought up playing against the turning ball. What is it about Moeen Ali? Ajit, I would love to ask you that the Indian batsmen are struggling with. Is it just with the Duke's ball and there's a bit more pace on the wicket in England? Maybe in India it's a wicket that's slightly slower, when the ball is turning. Why are they struggling against Moeen Ali when they've been actually brought up against the turning ball in India?
I mean, to be fair, it's only been 1 test that Moeen Ali's played, but
he did trouble them in
in general,
as well.
But Monty's right. In general, Indian batsmen in recent times, for some reason, have not been great against good spin bowling.
Yeah.
Maybe practicing against seam bowling or being on tour all the time and not actually having enough local cricket. As even in India, though, you can see the amount of seam bowlers that we are producing at the moment. In comparison with the spinners that are coming through. I mean, there's always an odd spinner that comes through, but there's a line of seam bowlers. Maybe the conditions in India trying to sort of make them more competitive. We've gone on the other side, from maybe the ball turning too much, we've gone keeping too much grass on it, which has encouraged fast bowling a bit more than it used to. So, but it is a fact. I mean, against good spin bowling, for some reason, Indian batsmen, and I think the primary reason is because of the defence. I think every time you are not sure of your defence, you are always going to struggle. And there is only so much you can do in terms of scoring, especially in conditions like we had in Southampton, when there is grip, turn, there is a bit of rough. You can't just take on a spinner. You still have to have decent defence, which a lot of the batsmen at the moment are not sure of.
Would a lot of bowlers bowl like Moeen Ali in first class cricket? Because we know about the speed that he bowls in, but he was quite ineffective when he came to India in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, the pitch is a little bit different in India. I think sometimes they're a bit on the slower side. Yeah, okay, they things happen very, very quickly on the second day or the third day or the fourth day of the Test match. But in general, I mean, here also there's a lot of rough created by most of the bowlers going round the stumps to left-handers from both teams, and that has helped his sort of bowling. I mean, the trajectory and the pace that he bowls at doesn't necessarily allow you to use your feet unless you pick the length very quickly. Which then makes it difficult if you're not sure of your defence.
I mean, I think it's a nice conversation to actually have more in detail, and we'll have it with Monty Panesar especially. But we'll take a short break before that. It's going to be all about Moeen Ali and the Indian batsmen. So we'll have that chat as we approach the final session of play on day 2 at the Oval. Stay with us on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday.
Catch the best of the England-India series on ESPN Cricinfo. Match highlights.
Approaching the final session of play then on day 2. Good to have your company still on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday. We've re-established our line with George Dobell from outside the Oval. So I'll just go back to George. The conversation that we were having at the time was how much Virat Kohli is actually involved with the bowler, how much chat is going on when he's either putting fields out or when things aren't going. We established, George, that plan A wasn't quite working for India in the morning and they didn't seem to have plan B. Just your thoughts?
I just thought that they had quite a lot of success with that strategy on day 1, didn't they? That they tried to keep things tight, and with a batsman like Broad in particular, you're never that far potentially from him playing a loose shot and giving it away. So what may seem a defensive field to a normal batsman might not be quite so defensive to a man like Broad, who could at any moment be caught at deep point or deep mid-wicket or whatever. So I take the point, and look, in retrospect, England have added 150 for the last 3 wickets, and India have let their foot off their neck a little bit, but at the same time Broad can make captains look a bit silly because of the very unconventional way he plays. And you know, a bit of credit where it's due, I thought Broad played pretty sensibly, and the best actually I've seen him bat for quite a long time.
I'm being told, George, that we had a bit of an issue with our connection because the local police seem to have a bit of a chase. You haven't done anything that you'd regret off late, have you, George?
I don't think it's me they're interested in, but yeah, I think there are a couple of other fellas outside the ground who they do seem to be quite interested in.
I tell you what, George Dobell, we'll let you off now for the safety and security of not just you, but for our fine cricket coverage that you provide on ESPN Cricket. I'll let you off to get back inside the Oval. We'll get you again as this test match goes on. Thank you very much to George Dobell, keeping the conversation going with Ajit Agarkar and Monty Panesar. Let's go to Monty. Monty, one thing that we've heard before this test match as a result of what happened in Southampton was India's batsmen were practicing a lot of sweeping. Now, we know that they're not necessarily natural or regular sweepers as say some of the batsmen before them, but how easy is it to perhaps, or hard is it to develop an ability to sweep someone like Moeen Ali?
Well, I think on this pitch where the ball is bouncing, I think the sweep isn't a good option. You're more likely to get top edges and you know, that leg slip, sort of short fine leg, you know, they come into play. So you know, on a wicket that bounces a little bit more, I think you know you should look to use your feet, even you know just shimmy down the wicket, and then when you pick that length very quickly, like Ajit said. You know, come down the wicket, hit him over the top. You know, I was very surprised to see that the Indian batsman didn't look to counter-attack him. You know, come down the wicket, hit him over the top, and be that confident. Is there some doubt in the batsman's mind? Are they not confident that they can do this, or do they just find it so difficult to pick his length because Moeen Ali is bowling, you know, with a beautiful shape and is getting a lot of dip on the ball, which you know even I know when I'm bowling, you know, well, you know, batsmen don't really know what to do, and I think credit goes to Moeen Ali here. You know, he has you know, he went back to Worcester, he bowled beautifully there, and he's probably bowling the best he's ever been, you know, since you know, being in an England shirt. So this shape, this dip that he's getting is beautiful, but I think you know, the Indian batsmen need to, you know, use the depth of their crease really well. You know, either go back, go forward, you know, try and do something. Don't stay in the crease, because eventually, you know, you're gonna get out to it.
KL Rahul's been very busy in this innings of 35.
Yeah, a couple of one over cover, one tried over mid-off, landed just over mid-off.
But one would think he shouldn't get quiet now against Moeen. Maybe the right way to go is being busy against Moeen.
It's been such a tough series for him that he's probably decided that if it's... Look, I think, you know, the punches that he's had on the back foot tells you how slow this pitch is. And every time the ball's been shot, he's been able to sort of easily push it to deep backward point and get off strike. I can't imagine him being too defensive against Moeen either. They already have a long on and a deep mid wicket for him because he's got the ability to hit the big shot. Yeah, he's just got to remember that he's got to start from 0 again, that he's out, not from 30 that he's on. So, or 30 odd that he's on.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity for him. I think he needs to make it count for the amount of faith that Virat Kohli shown in him.
We'll find out in this session. Thank you, Ajit. Thank you, Monty. We'll get your thoughts at the end of the day. We'll also have a word on Shikhar Dhawan and his poor series. But for now, it's time to focus our attention to the final session of play at the Oval, where KL Rahul and Pujara will resume duties for India.